Welcome to Love and Abuse, the show about navigating the difficult relationship. From simple disagreements to emotionally abusive behaviors, you deserve respect and kindness. All the information on this show is meant for educational purposes only. Always seek a professional for your mental health and well-being, and always pick your battles wisely. I'm your host, Paul Coliani. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Love and Abuse. If this is your first time, welcome to the show. I'm here to remind you of a few things: that you definitely deserve respect. You definitely deserve kindness. You are worthy. You are significant. You are important in this life. You are important to many people. And sometimes you don't feel important, usually to just one or two people. And those one or two people could be being abusive. Those one or two people could be toxic. They could have their own issues and they can't see worth beyond their own selfishness. And so it's important to remember that you do have worth. You are valuable. You should be treated with respect and kindness from everyone in your life. Even if they don't like you, they should treat you with respect and kindness, because that's how it's supposed to be. There's just a rule in the world when we are around other people, and that common rule that we should all follow is just treat me with respect and kindness, even if you don't like me. And if you don't like me, then why are you with me? That's one question that I've posed before on this show. If someone is mistreating you and they don't like what you're doing and they don't like who you are or how you show up, why are they there? What's the point? Are you just here to torture me? Are you here to make me suffer? No one should be around you if they don't like you. And I mean, that sounds harsh, but it's true. If they don't like you, or if they don't like how you're showing up, or they want to change who you are, then maybe they should find someone else to be around. And I know that's sort of a backwards way to look at it. Usually we say, hey, that person should stop hurting you. That person should stop making you feel bad about yourself. But if they really don't want you to be who you are and who you showed up as from the very beginning, then why are they there? That's my question I pose to anyone listening that doesn't like how the person's showing up. And that goes for anyone listening. If you're around someone that you don't like, and they make you feel bad, or they're doing things that are harmful to you, then you have to wonder why you're with them. And I know that's unfair. It's an unfair question, because you might have something invested in the relationship. And I never come on here and tell anyone that they need to leave a relationship. I think it's important to try to work on it together. The problem is only one person is usually trying to work on it. If you're listening to a show like this, it's usually one person trying to work on it, and the other person saying it's up to you to work on it. The other person usually doesn't think they need to work on it. And that's a telling sign. That's a sign that they believe you're the problem and they can do no wrong. If they believe they can do no wrong, it's going to be very difficult to work with them in solving the issues with your relationship. If they believe that they aren't infallible, if they believe they aren't perfect, then there's a chance. There's also a chance when they finally realize that they might be doing behaviors that need to change. And that usually comes with some big event. The big event might be you saying, I can't take this anymore. I don't want to be around you anymore. That could be the big event that finally shakes their foundation enough to say, oh, maybe I need to look inward. Maybe I need to look inside. Because the majority of the time, they're looking outside of themselves. They're looking at you. Someone who is being hurtful or controlling or emotionally abusive is looking at you. They're not looking at their own stuff. They're looking at what you're doing to them. And they don't want to deal with their own coping mechanisms. They don't want to heal from their old traumas and their old patterns of abusive behaviors or whatever. They don't want to look at that stuff. They only want to look at you or somebody else to change for them. And I think that's an important indicator. When you see someone wanting to change for another person, that person is usually trying. The other person, if they don't want to change, if they want to stay who they are, and you're telling them the way you are is hurtful, the way you are is making me feel bad. If you express that to them and they still don't want to change, they want to stay who they are, and they just look at you, they point the finger at you and say, well, you need to deal with it because this is who I am, then believe them. That is who they are. That is what they're doing. If somebody knows they're hurting you and you tell them that you wish they would stop hurting you and they don't want to change who they are is hurting you, you have to believe them. You have to believe what they're saying. And I know that's depressing for a lot of people listening right now. If I believe them, then what does that mean? Does that mean the end of our connection, the end of the relationship? No, not always. Sometimes it just means we have to have a deeper talk. We have to have a serious talk. Because if we don't talk about it, then it's just going to go downhill from here. And then what? Where does it end up? Where do we end up? And that's why I think it's important that before everything goes downhill, you have a serious talk. And sometimes it's too late. Sometimes you've been on one side of this for so long that you just close your heart and you can't open it again. I totally understand that too. And I talk about that with the people that want to change, the people that want to stop doing this behavior. The Healed Being program I run, they want to stop doing this behavior. And sometimes, even if they stop, the person they're with, the person they care about, has closed their heart. They've sealed it shut. They've spent the entire relationship on defense and trying to fix things that they don't even realize they fell out of love, maybe a long time ago. That's why catching this sooner than later might be able to salvage something, might be able to save something. I've seen people change. I've seen emotionally abusive people do a complete 180. So it's possible, but it has to be caught and it has to be talked about. And you have to be with someone that gets it. They finally get it. And they might need that event that I'm talking about, that event of what I call the threshold. You reach your threshold and you say, that's enough. I don't want this anymore. It's too harmful to me. It hurts. And if they say, well, that's your problem, you have to believe them. That is your problem and you have to do something about it. And I'm putting it on you. I know. I don't mean to. But if they say, I'm not going to do anything about it, believe that. That means they're not going to do anything about it. Now, will they do something about it when this big event happens? This maybe threat that the relationship will end? I've seen that many times. I've seen emotionally abusive people stop doing what they're doing and finally get shaken up enough to realize that they are the common denominator for the problems in the relationship. I'm not saying it's always that person. Sometimes two people are doing things to each other. Two people are doing behaviors that need to be addressed. But when it's one person that's perpetrating and the other person that's getting all this bad behavior, that's when you have one person that wants to try to fix things and the other person that points the finger at them and says, you fix things. Because I'm not going to do it because I'm righteous. I'm perfect. There's nothing wrong with what I'm doing. The way I think is healthy. I'm speaking from experience. This is exactly who I was. I believed I was healthy. I believed I knew best. And it took relationships breaking up. It took a divorce for me to finally reflect and finally look inward and say, wow, I really am doing something to cause this because it keeps happening to me. People I care about are leaving me. People I care about don't want to be with me anymore. They're closing their heart. They're sealing it shut. Maybe it's something I'm doing. And it took somebody rattling my cage, or many people rattling my cage over and over again to say, don't you get it? Don't you get what you're doing? and I finally got it. And this was, I don't even know how long ago, 15 years ago, I finally started getting this. And I told myself, I can't ever be that way again. And I need to work on this and figure out what the hell's wrong with me. Because there was something clearly wrong if I was being hurtful to people that I cared about, and they were doing everything they could to make me happy, to fit my mold, the mold that I wanted them to fit into, the criteria that I wanted from them. They were doing everything they could. They were trying. And no matter what they did, it wasn't enough for me. It wasn't enough for me. And when my divorce was starting, I had some time to reflect, and I asked myself the question, if I was the problem, what would I be doing that was causing all these issues? If I were doing the harmful behavior, if I were acting in a way that made them leave, what were the specific things that I was doing that would make them leave? And in order to wrap my brain around that, I had to try on their shoes. I had to pretend I was my wife and listen to me, talk to her, me. And I saw myself over there talking to me, showing disappointment, giving me the silent treatment, withholding love and affection. And for the first time, I realized what my wife was going through and just how awful I was. I saw myself through my own or through her eyes, but also through my own eyes. I saw myself from a distance, from this dissociated state where I could look at myself and see what I was doing and hear what I was doing. And it hit me. It finally hit me. This is who I've been, and this is who I am being. And if I continue being this way, it's never going to work out for me. And also for the first time, and if you've listened to the show before, you've heard me talk about this, but also for the first time, while in my wife's shoes, this perception that I had of me mistreating my wife, so seeing me over there mistreating my wife, for the first time, I felt disgusted. I felt disgusted by my behavior. I felt sick. I felt like vomiting. I wish I had. It would have been more impactful, but I felt so disgusting inside. I don't even know the word. I just felt truly awful. I just felt like I was the worst person in the world. I was a monster. And I was doing this to somebody who cared about me. I was mistreating someone who treated me kindly. I was mistreating someone who treated me with respect. I was mistreating someone that actually wanted me to be happy. And so I share this perspective with a lot of humility, a lot of embarrassment. I don't carry the shame anymore. I had to work on that. But the person I was, I've never forgotten that. I've never forgotten that person. And I have committed to never being that person again. And I realized after I started changing how much lighter I felt not wanting to change somebody else. I felt so much lighter. I felt free because I used to be obsessively focused on somebody else to change for me. And I became the saying, live and let live. That was sort of my philosophy, just live and let live. And I also remembered that if I didn't like what somebody else was doing, that's my problem, not theirs. And if I don't like it, then I have to deal with the problem I have with it. And this is mainly with the people that I used to hurt. This is mainly in romantic relationships. I knew that if I was going to be in a romantic relationship, that if I had a problem with the person I was with, that I would choose to make it my problem, not hers. And what I mean by that is that I'm not going to try to control or change or put her down or give her a dirty look or say something that makes her feel guilty or bad. I'm not going to do any of that because it's not her problem. Her behaviors are who she is. And my behaviors shouldn't be extending outside of me to hurt someone else. They should stay inside of me so I can reflect on them. I can work on them. I can work on the emotional triggers. I can work on the poor and unhealthy coping mechanisms that I have. because it's important that I learn how to cope with everyday challenges or the challenges presented in more complex relationships, like romantic relationships. It's important to have coping tools, coping skills, so that when I do become emotionally triggered, I know how to handle it. Because triggers don't go away right away. You have to work on these things. You have to reflect on these things. And so I didn't mean to talk about this for too long, but I wanted to open the episode with my history and what I had to go through to change, and that it is possible. It is possible. But there are certain criteria that need to be in place for a person to stop being hurtful, and that is to finally stop looking at the other person and look inward and ask themselves, is there anything I can do to show up in a better way, to show up as a supportive person? And especially the question, am I supporting that person's happiness? That is my main go-to. That is my main mantra. Am I supporting her happiness? Am I supporting her decisions, even if I disagree with them? Doesn't mean I just do a free-for-all. It doesn't mean if she says, hey, I want to rip out the bedroom and put in a hot tub, I'm not going to just go with it. We have conversations about relationship issues and shared common things that we are both involved in. But for the most part, am I allowing her to be who she is? And that has become one of the most important philosophies I live by. Am I allowing that person to be who they are? And so again, I opened the episode with that, maybe as a possible foundation for what I'm going to talk about today, which is somebody's email. And I'm not going to read you the email. I'm going to read you lines from the email. And this is basically showing you emotionally abusive behavior line by line. It's like asking the question, what does emotional abuse look like? And it's interesting because this person who wrote to me, she asked the same question a lot of people ask. Am I the abuser? Am I the controlling, manipulative person? Am I doing all these things? And maybe they're right about me. And so let me just read you the lines that I've highlighted in this email, and let's just get on the same page. Let's start here. 1 week after my mom died, he told me I needed to get over it. Now, when you hear that, do you hear someone supporting this person's happiness? Just get over it. It's been a week. Come on, let's move forward. Everyone dies. I'm just making that up, but it's probably close to the truth. I don't see that as supporting that person's happiness. So this is how I look at these things, and let's go forward. We have another one. I've been led to believe that I'm too emotional, and he's told me that he needs to be the sole decider if my emotions are valid or not. Wow, talk about somebody who wants to get inside your head and control you from the inside out. This is somebody who wants you to tell you what your emotions mean and if they're valid or not. And nobody can get inside your head. Nobody can get inside there to make that true, make that valid, make that false, make it wrong. Nobody can do that because your emotions are real to you. They are authentic. Even if you're overreacting, even if you're super sensitive, like they say, it doesn't matter. They're still real. They're still inside you. They're still yours and they're still valid. Just like their frustration or upset is valid. You can't just say, well, you're not really frustrated. You're not really upset. No, you could see they are. Just like if you are sad or confused, you're sad or confused. That's what you're experiencing. That's what you're going through. Every emotion you have is valid. Don't let anybody ever tell you that your emotions are not valid or they don't matter or they're not real or you're being too sensitive or whatever. Because they don't know what's happening inside of you. And if they believe they do, then what they're trying to do is manipulate you. They're trying to control you. They're trying to control how you feel. It's the epitome of emotional abuse. They're abusing your emotional state. They're abusing your ability to process your own emotions. And they're trying to make you feel and think the way they want you to think. The next one is, he tells me I have no ambition, even though I work hard and get paid well. And he says, I drag him down. Well, this guy knows how to play the victim. He's trying to take her power away. He's trying to make her feel like no matter what she does, it's not enough. Now, why would somebody do that? Why would somebody try to take your power away? Well, in my experience, in my own life, and in the work I've done with other people, what they are trying to do is put you in what I call a lowered state. So if you feel lower, you feel disempowered, then what you are trying to do is get your power from somewhere, trying to feel good enough in yourself, trying to feel worthy, trying to feel valuable. And where do you get that? You typically seek it from the closest people in your life. And when the abusive person is the closest person in your life, they set this up so that you feel disempowered so you can get your power back from them. It's the abuse cycle. It's the love and abuse cycle, actually, and that's the way trauma bonds are formed. You are bonded to somebody because they take something away and then they give you something, and then they take it away and they give you something. And so it's a high and a low and a high and a low. And you don't want to feel low. You want to feel that high. You want to feel good. And so what are you doing? When you're in that low state, you're trying to feel good again. And the problem is, if they're your source for that high and low, a trauma bond can form much easier, because now it's like a drug. You're withdrawing and now you need the drug and you feel good again. And now you're off the drug and you're withdrawing and you need the drug and you feel good again because they supply it. And that's how this bond just keeps you in a relationship that may not be healthy for you, or keeps you trying to always work on the relationship and fix the relationship that will never get better, will never improve, unless there's a big event like I was talking about earlier. But let's move on to the next one, which is I look for reasons for it being my fault, and I acknowledge that. So this person is saying that she's looking for all the reasons that it might be her fault, and she knows it. She knows she says, I know I'm doing this, but I still do it. I don't know how to stop it. I'm looking for the reasons for it to be my fault. So what she's saying is that everything that he's saying might be true, so I'm looking for the reasons that it might be true. You know, the people that do that, the people who look for those reasons, they're compassionate, they're kind, they're caring, they're generous, they're supportive. These are the kinds of people that want to show up the best way they possibly can. And they're also humble enough to think and ask themselves, is there a better way I can show up? Is there a better way that I can be? Is there behavior that I can stop? Is there behavior that I can do? Those are the people that I would call mostly normal and friendly and the kind of person that you'd want in your life, because they care. They care about not showing up as hurtful. And that is a distinction. When somebody cares about not showing up as hurtful, just remember that qualifier. If somebody shows up and they don't want to be hurtful, they're willing to change. And that is the qualifier or the distinction that I usually make when it becomes a question of who is abusing who. Are you willing to change? Are you willing to reflect? Are you willing to look inward? Are you willing to stop behaviors that maybe you don't even believe are bad or hurtful or wrong? That's where I had to go. That's the place I visited during my healing. Am I willing to let go of staunch beliefs and staunch values just to see the other person happy? I'm not saying it's a full sacrifice and you just drop everything that you are. I'm saying, are you willing to look inward? And this is more for the emotionally abusive person. Are you willing to look inward and reflect on your own behaviors and even be willing to reflect on them and work on them and try to heal from them? Are you willing to look at your behaviors and ask yourself, are those behaviors serving me anymore? Are those behaviors serving them anymore? Are those behaviors adding to my life in a positive way? Are they adding to somebody else's life in a positive way? Or are they only causing misery for one or both of us? That is self-reflection. That is what the emotionally abusive person needs to do in order to stop doing the behaviors they do. But it's a lot of inner work. It's a lot of inner work. So I'm going to move forward here because I got a few more. She says, he accuses me that I drain him because he has no choice but to parent me. Some of these are mind-blowing, even though I've seen these many, many times before. But the people who are saying things like this, like, I have no choice but to parent you because you make terrible decisions, you make childish decisions. Do they even hear themselves? Talk about making someone feel bad, invalid, unimportant, unworthy. I see things like this, and it still floors me to this day that somebody could actually say that to somebody else. An adult can say that to another equal adult. And obviously he doesn't believe she's an equal adult. Otherwise he wouldn't say that. And he just wants to take her power away. That's what it comes down to. I'm going to take your power away because you're the person that needs help. You're the person that needs parenting. You're the person that needs discipline. You're the person that needs controlling. That's probably what his thought process is. Let's go to the next one. I told him that I wanted to feel valued by him, to which he responded, well, you have to have valuable assets I desire if you want me to desire you. Again, putting her down, making her feel bad about herself, making her feel small, just totally unworthy, not valuable at all. This is not how you treat someone you love. Disempowering. And again, I'm reading these to show you what emotional abuse looks like. This is exactly what it looks like. Then she says, I'm back to wondering if I am the problem. Again, she asked that same question. So I see this 2 or 3 times in her message to me. Are you the problem if somebody puts you down all the time? No. I'm just going to say it right now. If somebody's putting you down all the time, you're not the problem. Somebody else is trying to oppress you. They're trying to put you into an emotional prison. And they want you to stay in that emotional prison. They want to stay the oppressor so that you continue doing exactly what they want you to do. And they don't necessarily have your best interest in mind, or they definitely don't in this case. He doesn't have your best interest in mind. He wants to keep you in that lowered state. He wants to keep you locked up, emotionally speaking. And if you're in that space, who do you go to for your energy? Who do you go to feel good? Who do you go to feel love and support? Again, it's that love and abuse cycle, that trauma bond that forms because of the highs and the lows. And this is what happens. And this is why a lot of people stay in these relationships, because they feel like they're in this lowered state, and then they get some good stuff. They get the loving treatment later on. And they love that loving treatment. They hope it lasts, but then it's taken away again. And so they seek it out again. And being in that emotional prison, you are probably, if we're going to talk about this metaphorically, you're being let out of that emotional prison every now and then. And it feels so good to be free. And then you start to feel some happiness again. But there's always that background worry and background fear maybe that you'll be trapped in that emotional prison again. So you carry that around with you. So you never really feel fully happy, fully involved in the relationship, because there's always something on your mind that, like my fiance once said about her ex, she said that when he was being nice to me, that only meant that he was eventually going to throw a brick at me or something like that. She said that was the warning. If he was being nice to me, he was about to throw a brick at me. And so she was in that up and down cycle as well. Moving forward, she says, I'm hoping you have some guidance on how to distinguish if I truly am a drain on my husband, or if that's something abusive he says to control me. Okay, here's an interesting one, because you probably are a drain on your husband because you're not doing everything he wants. You're not doing exactly what he wants. And when you do exactly what he wants, it's still not good enough. So that drains him. When you are trying to fix a problem or fix yourself, it's still not good enough because you're not doing exactly what he wants. And what he wants might change. Or what he wants might be an impossible standard that you'll never, ever meet. Are you a drain on him? Probably because he'll never be happy. He'll never be happy with you, and he'll always find something wrong. You'll never be able to meet the standard that he put out there. He has sky-high standards, and sometimes they're impossible standards, and some people just want to keep you in that lowered state. So unfortunately, yes, you'll be a drain on him, but that's not your fault. It's not your fault at all. There's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do to not be a drain on him. You will always be that for him if he doesn't work on this stuff in himself, if he doesn't change. And it sounds like, well, if I do this, if I do X, Y, Z, I can maybe lower that drain. No, it's not possible. It's not possible. You cannot fix this. You cannot work on his inability to cope or his inability to not be emotionally triggered. He has to work on that himself. His drain is his own doing. It would be like me putting my hand in a fire and getting upset at the fire. I'm putting my hand in the fire and I pull it back and it makes me upset. But then I put my hand in the fire again. This is what emotionally abusive people can do, is they can have a trigger. They can walk around with these emotional triggers. Like mine used to be, if I saw my wife eating junk food, I would be triggered. And I had to work on that and heal from that and realize what the heck was causing me to be so judgmental and critical. And healing from that was vital to my success in any relationship going forward, let alone being happy inside myself. And once I healed from that, I reflected on why I did all that stuff. I wondered why I kept putting my hand in the fire. And what I mean by that is that I chose not to accept who my wife was, or what she ate, or what she did, or what she said. I chose not to accept her, which meant the fire was always lit, because every time I chose not to accept her and she did something I didn't accept, it's like putting my hand back in the fire. Instead of saying to myself, she's not going to change, so why are you becoming emotionally upset? Why are you becoming triggered? She's not going to change. I didn't tell myself that. I just wanted to change her. And so that was my futile pursuit. Even if she did change, that's up to her. That would be her journey if she wanted to. It was up to me to get used to the idea that people are who they are. And if you don't like who they are, then you shouldn't be giving them a hard time. You should give yourself a hard time. You should look inward and tell yourself, if I have a problem with that person, that's my problem and I need to deal with it. I need to look at myself and why I get triggered by this stuff, instead of just trying to change or control someone else. Why am I trying to change them, which will automatically cause them to resent me, when all I have to do is reflect on who I am, why I get triggered by certain things, and work on that stuff. Even with therapy, if I have to go to therapy or whatever, I have to look at this stuff and why I get triggered, because if I don't address it, then it won't go away. And that's the hand in the fire analogy I'm using. I'm not addressing my own stuff, so the fire is always lit and I'm always putting my hand in it. The fire in this case is I'm not accepting who she is, and I continue to try to change who she is, and I continue to burn myself. Therefore, I drain myself. That's what this person's husband or partner is doing. He's draining himself, but he's blaming you for it. Well, all you have to do is change for me. All you have to do is stop doing this and start doing this, and I won't be drained anymore. But he's looking for happiness outside of him. He's looking for everyone else to change for him. And when you do that, you'll usually become disappointed. And if you have the capacity to make someone else feel bad and be controlling and emotionally abusive, that makes it worse. Because when you are looking for people to change for you and you do behaviors to cause them to change for you, that's what really brings things to a whole new level. And what I mean by that is we want people to change all the time, right? In our lives. I wish that person would not tailgate me. I wish that person didn't cut in front of me in the line. We want people to do things that we want them to do. But there's a difference between thinking that versus trying to control and change that person. I mean, this really does come down to what I was saying before about believing who somebody is. If they're showing up that way, that's who they are. And once you believe that's who they are, then you accept that's who they are. This can work for anyone in your life. If you're looking for something else and you don't find it, then it's not there. Not yet, but it's not there. It could be one day, but it's not there now. And that's all you have is now. That's all you have. Is you gauge what's happening in your life by how somebody shows up today. and yesterday and the day before. It's that trend. They've been showing up this way for this long. And as soon as you say, I don't expect it to change, your life gets a little easier because the decisions come a little easier, even though they may be hard or impossible to implement. Let me just finish this email with what I believe is the key determinant in figuring out if you really are the abusive one or not, because that was her original question. She said, I didn't used to have fear of who I was. Wow, that is such a powerful comment. I didn't used to have fear of who I was. That's like saying, I used to be proud. I used to be confident in who I am. But now I fear being myself. You should never, ever fear being yourself. And I know there are circumstances, there are battles that we have to pick, and we want to pick them wisely, but you should never go around in general fearing being yourself. Because if you are, then you're around people that make you fear. And if you're around people that make you fear being yourself, then I don't see love in that equation. And, my definition for love is supporting the other person's path to happiness, even if you disagree with the choices they make on that path. It's looking at someone and saying, I want you to be happy, whatever it takes, and I'm going to support that. I'm going to support you taking the path that you want to take, even though I might have some problems with it. But if that's the path that makes you happy, I want you to take that path. If somebody did that for you, if they looked at you and said, I just want you to be happy, no matter what it takes, I want you to be happy. I'm going to be there for you. I'm going to support you. Even if I disagree with the decisions you're making, I'm going to trust that you're making them for the right reasons, and I support that because all I care about is your happiness. How does that feel? Feels pretty damn good to me. I think that's how life and love should be. If you're walking around with fear of being yourself, it's time to question. It's time to look at things. It's time to talk about things. It's time to get real about what you really want in your life. Again, I'm not promoting breaking up or leaving a person or anything like that. I'm talking about having the deeper conversations that you might need to have so you can maybe heal the wounds in your relationship and yourself so that you can move forward and have confidence in being yourself. Thanks for listening. Share this with others that might benefit. Love and Abuse is the official podcast of the Mean Workbook, an assessment and healing guide for difficult relationships. The workbook gives you your mean score, which tells you the exact behaviors causing you to leave so many interactions feeling bad. Now you can pinpoint the specific, unhealthy, and even toxic behaviors in your relationship to help you take the next best steps for you and those you care about. Visit loveandabuse.com for more information. And if you've discovered that you are doing hurtful behaviors to someone you care about and you would like to change that about yourself, sign up for the Healed Being program over at healedbeing.com. The course comes with a private online group where I and others will give you direct support. You'd be amazed how good you feel when you're able to stop making those you love feel bad. That's over at healedbeing.com. This show exists to remind you that you are not alone and you're not going crazy. You deserve to be treated with respect and kindness. You deserve honesty and sincerity. You deserve to be treated as worthy and significant because you are. We'll talk again soon.